Today we're going to go over 3 elements of the legislation that was signed into law on July 4th. You've probably heard it called the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now this bill, along with any big landmark legislation that gets passed, supercharges political commentary. Depending on who you are listening to or talking to, it's either the greatest thing ever or it's the worst thing ever. If you've listened to me before, you won't be surprised to hear me say that I think that's kind of a bunch of noise. That is not what I'm going to do here today. My goal is to cut through that noise and give you some insight on how this bill could affect your personal finances. That's what I care about, not your politics, just like I'm pretty sure you probably don't care about mine. Now, 3 elements of this bill that we're going to be covering today. Number 1, this bill extends the current tax brackets that were established by the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act legislation. Very important for you and your financial advisor when it comes to tax planning, Roth conversion planning, income planning, etc. We'll get into that. Number 2, your healthcare. If you are someone who is retired before the age of 65, or you plan on retiring before the age of 65, and you will need to rely on the ACA marketplace for your healthcare, costs are going to look different in 2026 than they have in 2025. We'll dive deeper into that as well. Number 3, there are 3 tax deductions going into effect in 2025 that were not made permanent. They are set to expire in 2028, but these 3 deductions may benefit you. A deduction for tipped income, a deduction for overtime income, and a senior tax deduction if you're over the age of 65. We'll get into the mechanics of those deductions as well. Now, before I get into these topics, I want to be upfront that this bill is nearly 1,000 pages long. With any big legislation, especially one involving tax law, there's often confusion around how the law gets implemented. Some of these new laws might get enforced differently than people like me understand they will be implemented today. That is why it is important for you to work with a financial advisor and or a tax professional who can stay up to date on the implementation of these laws and how they affect your specific situation. Also, you may disagree with my interpretation, which is great. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments. As you see on the screen, these are the tax brackets that have been extended indefinitely compared to where tax brackets were set to default back to prior to the passage of this bill. I ran a couple of quick scenarios. Let's say a couple 50 years old makes $100,000 in ordinary income. This extension of the tax bracket saves them $2,077 in federal taxes in 2026. If we take the same couple, bump their income up to $200,000, that would save them $5,805 in 2026. So brackets are more favorable, standard deductions remain higher. This is a net positive for nearly every American taxpayer. When it comes to tax planning and maximizing your after-tax wealth, something JRS tries to help their clients accomplish every day, this is huge. Not only are tax brackets remaining lower for longer, but we also now have some clarity on where tax brackets will be in the future. You might hear them referred to as permanent. That means there is no provision for them to sunset like we had previously, but I would warn you that nothing in the tax code is technically permanent. It is possible we could see a bill passed in the future that changes these brackets, but from a planning perspective, it gives some clarity for now on where tax brackets will be. For my clients, I'm officially updating their tax plan and income plan with the new bill considered. If you don't have a financial advisor or a tax professional helping you do the same, it might be a good time for you to find one, especially if you're approaching retirement or newly in retirement. Now, moving on to healthcare, from a planning perspective, it's not so much what this bill does, it's what it does not do. And it does not extend the expanded and increased ACA premium subsidies that were signed into law in March of 2021 due to the American Rescue Plan Act, and then further extended in 2022 by the Inflation Reduction Act. Those extensions are set to expire at the end of 2025. So what does this mean for you? If you are pre-Medicare age, so under 65 years old, and you are retired or planning to retire before age 65, and you need healthcare through the ACA marketplace, your healthcare premium costs are likely going to be higher in 2026 than they would have been in 2025. The original ACA premium tax credit in 2010 was enacted where if you earn over 400% of the federal poverty level, you earn no subsidy. This created what is commonly called a subsidy cliff. In practice, $1 over the cliff compared to $1 under the cliff had a big impact on your healthcare premium costs. This chart might help explain the prior visual. On the far left, you have your income as a percentage of federal poverty line. The percentage of your income you pay towards your healthcare premiums are showing in the middle for 2025. These were set percentages. On the right, you see where the subsidies will revert back to. These numbers are estimates, as the percentages for 2026 and onward, barring any extension of the current law, is based on an index. 2026 numbers are not yet available. You do not want to be in a situation where you can't avoid taxable income and you get slightly pushed over the cliff each year that you're on an ACA plan. Looking at the chart below, not only will it revert back to you paying a little bit higher percentage of your income if you're in the 150% to the 400% of the federal poverty line, if you are above the 400%, the reason that so many people are going to lose that subsidy is it was capped at 8.5%. Now there is no subsidy. So that is where, on the prior slide where I showed the slope compared to the steep sell-off, that's where that number comes from. And that's why this is so important for people that are on the ACA marketplace and have been relying on those premiums for their retirement budget, etc. And third, there are 3 tax deductions that go into effect for tax years 2025 through 2028. They are not made permanent. They would have to be extended with the passage of a new bill. And the first is tax on tips. If you earn income through tips, you may be able to deduct up to $25,000 of your tipped income. This deduction starts to phase out for individuals who make above $150,000 a year and couples who make above $300,000 a year. Now, this is nice for those who rely heavily on tips for their income. The truth is, that is a small percentage, I believe around 2% of US taxpayers. But if it does apply to you, that's up to $25,000 you would have owed federal taxes on that you no longer do. I should note you will still owe state taxes on this $25,000, depending on what state you live in. Second is tax on overtime. There's going to likely be some clarification on what constitutes overtime, just like there might be clarification on what qualifies as tipped income. But it's my understanding that the same phase-out limits apply as they do to tips: $150,000 for single individuals and $300,000 for married filing joint. And you can deduct up to $12,500 of overtime income if you're single and $25,000 if you're married filing joint. If this applies to you, it's yet another deduction of income that was previously federally taxable and from 2025 to 2028 potentially won't be. And lastly, there was a lot of talk about Social Security income becoming tax-free. That did not happen in this bill, despite a pretty weird message that I and others received from the Social Security Administration. But what did happen is there's a $6,000 addition to the standard deduction for those aged over 65. This is $6,000 per person. So if there's a couple above 65, that's $12,000 added onto your standard deduction. Now, this will help retirees over the age of 65 reduce some of the taxes owed on their Social Security benefits, but it won't benefit you if you're collecting Social Security benefits early from the age 62 to 64. The phase out for this credit starts for individuals at $75,000 and for couples at $150,000. So this is something that you should take into consideration if you're drawing funds from a pre-tax retirement account or if you're analyzing Roth conversions. Losing out on a potential $6,000 or $12,000 deduction might make a Roth conversion much more costly than beneficial. There is plenty more in this bill to cover how it affects SALT tax, Medicaid, student loans, etc. I will be putting out more in-depth videos on specific topics, so please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. You might have noticed, if you've seen any prior videos, that I have a different background. I've officially made the move from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'll miss the nice blue background, but more importantly, I'll miss the nice people of Wisconsin. Thankfully, we live in a virtual world now, and at JRS, we already do everything 100% remote, so not too much changing on that front. If there's anyone listening in Pennsylvania, give me a shout. I would love to meet more fellow Pennsylvanians, since I now am one. And as always, money is a tool, knowledge is freedom, and planning is power. I hope you have a great rest of your day.